The birds are chirping and it's a beautiful day to be alive. Beautiful humans, welcome back to another episode of the I Like Birds podcast. I'm your host, Zach Rippey. We're here to help you grow in your faith while I grow in mine. It's been a journey, 5-year journey of being here with you guys on I Like Birds podcast, and we're grateful you're here. Smash that thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube. It always helps to get it out to more people. We are live right now in the DFW in Fort Worth, Texas, Crowley, Texas to be more specific, at Airwave Studios, and we're blessed to be here today. We are, this is a privilege. Normally we go live at 1 p.m., but we had on somebody that actually has a job today, and we're blessed to have him. He's a comedian. He's a man of God. He is a father. He is a grandfather. He has a legacy of faith. And if you've ever seen the show Prison Break, you could have seen him in season 2. If you paused it in the courtroom, you could have seen him in the background somewhere if you squinted really, really hard. And we're blessed that he's here today. He's been in my life for quite some time since I moved to Texas. He was actually one of the first people I ever met when I moved here in 2018. And he's actually came to my baptism. He donated me a whole bunch of ministry books when I decided to be a voice for Jesus, and he's encouraged me along the way and even edited my book 21 Days in Africa way back when. So this is an honor to have him. Give it up for Robb Ross, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, glad to be here. This is a long time coming.
Long time coming. You did the Cheers for 4 Years show, and that was really fun. You did some comedy. You roasted me a little bit. You had a little 10-minute set on stage in front of a live audience, and it was just cool to have you up there. But I feel like this is more of the full experience.
You know, and I always told you that get past episode 117, and you're doing great. This is awesome. Seeing all the shows that you're putting up and everything. I faithfully listened to the first 43 episodes, and then I'd call you up afterwards. Just, man, this is awesome, man. Somebody taking the time to do this. And it was really cool because I knew you before you really got on fire for the Lord. I don't know. I don't want to question your salvation beforehand because I don't know. But, you know, we met in comedy and on open mics and shows. I think you did some of those Butch Lord showcase. I think in your book, you said I look like a used car salesman. Is that right? Yeah, I think that was your description of me.
I did. You know, you had the suit that looked like Better Call Saul a little bit.
And so, you know, seeing you know, as a clean comedian, as a Christian, going into that world with a lot of reprobates, and I love the guys, I love the comics, but there's a lot of hurting people with bad backgrounds or bad life choices, and it's a real ministry opportunity. And behind the scenes, a lot of time these guys call me up. We have dinner, we talk, we have very, very heart-to-heart conversations, or they tell me stuff going on in their life. And so, you know, whatever you do in your life, it doesn't have to always happen inside the church walls. You know, God's going to take your passion, your abilities, your talents, things you want to do, things you want to, like, let's say you want to do, triathlons and all that, and you start training for triathlon. Well, guess what? You're going to meet people doing triathlons, and you're going to see people out there, and eventually you do enough of them, you're going to form relationships, and people are going to see something different about you. Not that we're arrived, not that we're perfect, but that we're trying, and that there's something changed on the inside out of us, and that gives us an opportunity to reach out. So when I saw you get saved, it was around April of 2020, if I recall, and so... and then immediately you started this podcast. I thought, this is an awesome concept because you're watching something from the infancy of you learn as I learn, you know, and then watching you go through that, and then the pandemic, and then having, you know, we're both married with multiple kids, and then watching you go to Bible college, which I did also, and graduate. Congratulations. I'm a Bible college dropout.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, yeah, which means we made it to Ezekiel. And so lived in India, did missionary work, you know, that type of stuff. And so to see you do comedy and us to do comedy together and then get saved, and then we still do comedy together, you know, and your heart's changed and you're going in a different direction, and you know what it's like to make, because I know you do it too. You minister to a lot of these guys behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because these guys a lot of them are into drugs, alcohol, sex addiction, all kinds of things. And, you know, we're there as a light. You know, when they're ready, we're there as a light. And it's not that we're wagging our finger in their face, but we're there for them.
I love that you say that, because last night I actually got a phone call from a buddy of ours who is recently just like seems to be seeking the Lord in a whole new way as far as the top of the year goes. And he's having a new identity in Christ. He's starting to see that he's not blaming God for things anymore. He's starting to see where God's heart and his character is. And it just really touched me because there was never any moments of our friendship where I'm like, beating the scripture over him. It's just straight up relationship. It's straight up letting him see the light, and it's straight up just being there for him in a way that's like, okay, I can handle your tough questions, and I can be somebody that you need to consult to or open up to about certain things. And I share, truth with you and share encouragement. And I think that's how you win people to Christ. Nobody's ever been won to Christ when it comes to like, preaching at them or telling them where they're falling short. It's like, we all have our things that we're falling short of. Of course, when you know Christ, you know his word, you start to live a better, more purpose-filled life. And that's just what I try to help with people with. And even one of our buddies, Preston Pfeiffer, said the other day at the open mic, it was a few weeks ago, he's like, man, you're really good for the scene here and the comics here because you have your stuff together and you're a healthy person to have around. And I was like, man, that really touched me, considering that a newer guy in the scene already thinks that and feels that way whenever I come around. And I don't come around a whole lot, but when I do, it's been really special to be received like that.
So I got saved a long time ago, and I remember this one guy named George. He owned a barbecue place, had been a truck driver, precious man, and he witnessed everywhere. And I love George. But, man, he was one of those in-your-face, like, here's a track, you need to get saved at Jesus. So everywhere we went to eat, he would witness to the manager, he would witness to the way. I mean, that's great. But it's like, you need to pray right now. You need to pray right now and accept Christ. Well, a lot of times people would pray, they're just trying to get them off their back. And the damage that does in the future is then, like, maybe they come to you or they're hearing you preach or being witnessed to by a minister or whatever, and they go, well, I've already tried that. Well, their heart wasn't ready. They want. It's okay to shine a light and tell what God's done, because you overcome by the word of the Lamb and the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony. And what I have found is when you establish this relationship type Christianity with people or relationship, that then when the time comes, they're a lot more open because you're shining a light. You can draw a line in the sand on some things. Like, I don't do drugs. I made a personal choice. I don't do alcohol because I can't handle alcohol. I can't handle eating Bluebell either. So I mean, I had a gallon of Bluebell, the Bluebell like mint chocolate chip, and I actually ate a whole gallon in about 2 days. And so it's like,
you don't have self-control.
I don't have a certain amount of self-control. And so it's pretty easy for me to see somebody's on drugs not have self-control, because I know. So I just have to stay away from it. But don't do it very often. And comedy is just an outlet for me to get around a lot of unsaved, lost people, either in the audience or comics. It's not the reason why I do it. I have a passion for doing comedy just like you do. But the outflow of that is that I'm in the midst of people that aren't serving God, that don't know about Christ, and that I, in the best that I can as an imperfect human being, can shine that light. And so, you and I, you're going to be doing a show with me coming up here called PG Date Night. And the concept for that is constantly I have people say, I want to come see you perform comedy. And yeah, there it is. And want to see, look at that good looking picture of you right there. Look at that. That's great. And people come to me and say, I want to come see you perform. The problem is I don't always know who else is performing with me. And sometimes they're just absolutely filthy. My wife won't go to shows unless it's a show like that, because sometimes these people are hopped up on drugs. They're very filthy in what they do. Now, they have a freedom of speech to say whatever they want, and I'm not up there wagging my finger in their face. But when I have a good set and roll a crowd, and I've done it clean, believe me, it gets attention. I have comics come up to me and go, how do you do that? I have multiple comics currently. They're like, how do you write clean? I was like, well, the first thing you do is stop cussing, on the set. And then I tell them, though, if your whole life, and this just goes not just in comedy, but anything, if your whole life is that you're looking at porno and you're looking at bad movies and all your friends cuss and you're always about dirty subjects and everything else, well, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What's going to come out of your heart is what you're putting in. It's not, Jesus says not, what goes in the mouth that defiles the man, it's what comes out of the mouth defiles the man. And that, when you take stuff in through your eyes and you're looking at stuff and then that's all you're doing, then guess what's going to come out on stage? Well, for you and me, we've had a heart change. So I got saved in 1982. My sister was going through a hard time, and she had gotten saved, baptized in the Holy Spirit, and I came in and I started going to church with her and had a radical transformation with Christ. And I tell people that what that means to me is before I was saved, I ran around all I wanted to, drank all I wanted to, smoked all I wanted to, cussed all I wanted to. And then after I got saved, I ran around all I wanted to, I smoked all I wanted to, I drank all I wanted to, I cussed all I wanted to. But the thing is, my want to had changed. And I changed from the inside out. And this is so different than any other. And I've had to study the world religions. You go to Bible college, usually you do the thing like study the world religions. And I lived in India, actually, did missionary work and lived there. And, the thing is that's different than any other, quote, religious belief or any other kind of belief is that when you accept Christ, people go, well, I'm not good enough to go to church. Right, neither am I. He will come in, and if any man is in Christ, he becomes a new creature. Old things have passed away, and behold, all things have become new. And what happens is God will change you from the inside out. Now, some things will be instant, and some things will be a process. Some things you have to get in the Word and go, oh, wow, he doesn't like a forward mouth. I need to clean, because that's what I had to do. I had to clean up how I talked. And I had to work on, and so when I got saved, I had to work on three things. One is my language. Everybody around me cussed. Everybody. And I actually have video of me, because my dad was the first one to get a video camera. So I have video of me when I'm 17. And one day, my kids, I have 4 kids, one of each. And I'll give you a second on that one.
One of each gender?
And no, it's just a joke. Because people say I have 2 kids, one of each. I say 4 kids, one. And then I watch people's eyes roll back in their head as they try to figure that out. But, and so now I've lost my train of thought here. What was I talking about?
Definitely wasn't Bluebell ice cream.
It wasn't Bluebell ice cream. I saw you going, oh God, he's going off
You
this
had video
rough
of you.
that's what it is. So video of me cussing, and I didn't realize it. I said, hey kids, you want to see video of me when I'm 17? And we're doing some stunts and stuff, and something happened on a stunt. My friend and I are cussing, and my wife just got really upset. I said, honey, I forgot this is me when I'm 17. This was 2 years before I was saved. And so when I got saved, it was like, I'm going to quit drinking. I'm not going to fornicate, and I've got to clean up my language. And it's not that someone wagged their finger in my face and told me you need to do these things. It was organic. It's like I had a life change. It's like, okay, now the people I'm around don't do those things, and it's like I've got to change. And so the last time I had a drink, I was over at one of my 2 best friends' house for Thanksgiving, and he had thought I'd freaked out. I mean, he thought I'd gone crazy, becoming saved. My language was starting to clean up. I was talking different. And I was at his house having Thanksgiving dinner, and he said, would you like something to drink? And I said, well, do you have a Heineken? He goes, yeah. And I said, yeah, I'll have a Heineken. So he went and got a beer, got a Heineken, gave it to me, and he goes, okay, now I know you're cool. Now, and something in me was he's equating at this moment, what he thinks is a lack of Christianity with me drinking. And I said, God, if you will help me and take the desire away from me, I'll never have a drink again. And I have not had a drink since Thanksgiving Day, 1982.
Interesting.
And so you have to understand, I grew up as a son of an alcoholic. My dad stopped drinking through AA at 13. When I was 13 years old, he was 53. He had drank since he was in his teenage years. And it was life-changing for him. And one thing that as we had a really good adult relationship, my dad and I asked him about the AA program, and he said, well, the success of the AA program comes because people are finally at a point they want to change. And it's the same thing with Christianity. The difference with Christianity is, you want a point where people repent, where they have a change of heart, but here's the key. Having Christ come in you then will change you from the inside out. He'll circumcise your heart. The law will be written on your heart. It's not like you have to follow 613 different rules. It's that you'll change from if you're truly changed, you're truly accepted Christ, you'll have a change from the inside out. You may struggle with things. If you have addictions like heroin or alcohol, those may be a struggle where you have to walk through some people with, and it may be a very long-term struggle, okay? But God will help you get through it. But there's going to be other things or many things that will change instantly. And for me, it was like, I got to stop. I stopped drinking immediately, and I never had a drink again. I waited till I was married to consummate the marriage until, I waited during those 5 years after I got saved involved. And believe me, that's a lifesaver looking back now, because the number of, quote, preacher's kids or Christian girls that would be maybe willing to step outside the line because of the moment, the heat, the hormones or whatever. And I was like, draw a line in the sand, said, I'm not going there. And I look back now and thinking how much grief, time, energy, everything that saved me and saved other people, that I see when I counsel. Because I'm active in men's ministry, so I see a lot of men who've made a lot of decisions. And it's not that I've been perfect at all. That's not, you know me. That's not the case. But having Christ change you from the inside out is like, and that's the message of anything else that somebody gets out today, is when you accept Christ, it's not a matter of these rules. And this happened to me at church when I was growing up. I mean, hey, I can tell you church stories, and I can tell you ministry stories. But I'll tell you, you have to have a personal relationship with Christ, and that's all that matters at the end of time. When you are on your deathbed, you're not going to say, "I wish I would have spent more time at the office." It's going to be you, your wife, your family, what you did on this earth that was right and for God, but your relationship with God. But He will change you from the inside out. And that's the real key that people don't understand a lot of times, because they grew up in church, or they had all these rules, or they went to a Christian school, and you had all these things, do's and don'ts and everything. Well, yeah, there are do's and don'ts, but here's the thing is, I do or don't because God's changed my heart from the inside.
Yeah, He's changed your desire, so therefore you don't desire those do's that you once did. And those don'ts don't feel as limited anymore. You don't feel like you don't have freedom. You feel like you want to please the Father because your heart wants to please the Father, and you want to walk like Christ because you love Christ, and you're like, yo, he knows the blueprint. He knows, and on all His rules and all those things that people are afraid to step into that aren't saved. All those things are bettering your life if you do step into God's way. And all those things improve your life, and you start to feel the blessings. You start to feel the joy. You start to feel, oh, I don't actually need a drink to cope. I don't actually need drugs to feel the high. I don't actually need sex to feel pleasure. You can have all these other things as well. And when you're into the kingdom, when you're stepping into the kingdom, when you're walking with Christ, it's like, that's enough. And that's all you need, because you'll feel all those things, if not more, because everything is better as a Christian. We're set apart from the world. We're salt and light. And it's, of course, I have hard days where I have to fight the flesh. But also I know what the Spirit says based on His word. And when you start getting that word in you, and you start remembering what the word says, you're able to live it out in a way where you don't have those fleshly desires anymore. But a lot of it is dying to self. As you're aware, I'm sure you had to die to self when it came to all three of those things that you worked on. Mm-hmm. But you don't do it on your own strength. You have to rely on Jesus to do it with you and for you, because He's the one that transforms us. But we have to be obedient in that and walk it out. And
that's the hope that not only we have, but that we can share with others. And that it can start today, and that you can have that change from the inside out. So I'll tell you an incident that happened. So before I was saved, I had a beautiful girlfriend, high school, and she was a model. And, I had one of those weekends that every, quote, secular guy ever dreams of. My parents were out of town, ironically, and they're at an AA convention. And, so the girlfriend spends the night, and it's like you're living the lifestyle of what in the world is like you've arrived. You can have alcohol, you have a girlfriend, you spend the weekend. And I felt like I was dying, because when I was 16 years old, I've only been really involved in 3 churches. So when I was about 15, 16, there was a local Baptist church, a little bitty small Baptist church, but they had a flag football team, and they had a game room. So we would just go up there. So I wasn't saved, but one day I was talking to the pastor, and I was just being a smart aleck. And he had a library, and I said, he goes, yeah, he goes, I got a lot of books on different subjects. And I just, as a smart aleck, said, you got any books on Satan? And he goes, you know what, I got one. And he gave me a book by Hal Lindsey called Satan is Alive and Well on Planet Earth. And Hal Lindsey was a great Bible, end of times, eschatology writer. He wrote a book called Late Great Planet Earth that was a New York Times bestseller in like 1971, 72, launched his career. So he had a series of books, and I read this book, and it was about Christ and Satan and God and that whole thing. And at the end of that book, when I was 16, it had a prayer of salvation. So I said that prayer of salvation. So now here I've engaged an awakening. But I'm not around. The Baptist church that was there was just dead. There was the leadership left, and then there was this 3-way split, a power struggle in the church. And that just wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't have any other friends that were going, but it was a little bit of an influence, especially that book. But then I'm in conflict, because I've awakened something, but I'm not living the life. I remember one day when I was a teenager, I thought, I'm going to live the 10 Commandments. And I can guarantee you I broke 3 of them by the end of the day. And I didn't kill anybody, but it just, and I just I can't live this. I mean, I realized at 17, trying just for one day, and I couldn't live it, and when I had that experience with a girlfriend, I felt like I was dying. And I told her that. I said, I feel like I'm dying, because my spirit on the inside, I was grieving God, and I felt spiritually dead. And so the good that came out of that now for the rest of my life, I know what that feels like. I know what having a glimpse of hell, so to speak, from the inside feels like. If I go thinking, oh man, I don't want to go down that road, because I know what I'll feel like. I'll feel not just my conscience, but there's something deep in the soul that I'd feel grieved like death. I don't know how it's supernatural. It's too hard to explain. So I didn't see anything, didn't see angels or spirits or anything. But on the inside, I just told her, I said, I feel like I'm dying. So when I got saved several years later and they got the new life, I said, this is what I was looking for. This is what I needed. And I needed that empowerment because in the flesh, I can't live this. I can't live it on my own. I have to have Christ's empowerment to live it. And so that's the message I would share with anybody. People, well, I got to change. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. God will take you where you're at. And some of it will be instant and some of it will be a process. That's why we learn the Word. That's why you read the Word. That's why you meditate the Word, because things will change over time. And that's the other thing is you think you're going down the road. And so for me, it's like gluttony, like with the ice cream, Bluebell ice cream, okay? I don't do it all the time. Yeah, I get it on very rare occasions because that's how I have to just control that. I'm thankful that I don't drink because I can't imagine what I'd be walking through a liquor store or where you and I perform at a lot of times, or open mics where they're serving alcohol. It doesn't bother me. It just doesn't affect me at all because I don't want any alcohol because I knew how bad I am with that.
Got you. When it comes to comedy, do you ever feel, because I know you're not completely clean and Christian in every single aspect. You are clean. You're a clean performer. I've seen you kind of like tiptoe on the line before. Have you ever felt any kind of conviction for jokes or?
So my process is, so when you do comedy, here's how a secular comic, very good secular comic, they say they write clean and they dirty it up. I write clean, stop there. So there's sometimes I'll push it because sometimes I'll do like marriage seminars. Well, obviously there's jokes you can do in a marriage seminar that you can't do like in just a regular church environment. But then there's jokes you could do anything in a comedy club and all that. And so yeah, there's times of like I push the edge on that too much. It's not, and you've heard me. I don't ever cuss. People have never heard me cuss up on stage or anything else. Maybe subject matter that you push is like push the edge on it. But if I get an idea, I will write it down. I write down everything. And so it's like, can I clean this up? Because it's not really what's in my heart. This message, so there's a lot of things I just scrap because I can't use them. So it's a struggle because also I will go to a mic with 20 guys performing and I'm the only clean one. And the thing is like, for example, the show we're going to be doing here on July 12th here locally at Hyenas. And that's cool. We're going to be doing Hyenas in the Red Room. So excited about that.
Yeah, we got tickets in the description of this video.
Oh, good. Yeah, and they're cheap. We made them cheap. They're $10. Yeah. The tickets are $10.
I got a friend coming out too already.
Oh,
Got a ticket.
Because I know I talked to the manager of the club, and they're already selling tickets and all that. So we're hoping actually it's going to get sold out here in the next about 8 days. So real excited about it and all that. But yeah, when you're performing, I wanted people, because a lot of times when you say, and the reason why I call it PG date night is because if you say clean comedy, people think it's just a bunch of dad jokes who've never been and seeing clean comedy. And there are just some really bad comics who are, quote, clean. They're just not good. And so I wanted to say, hey, you go see, like Tom Cruise in that movie he made a couple of years ago, Maverick, Top Gun 2. I think that was PG-13. Or PG. And so it's like, would you go to a PG movie? Well, then you go to my thing because it's an adult environment. So we might cover some subject matters of marriage. I know you do. You talk about marriage and things like that. That would be, quote, PG. So it's not going to be clean like
I like that
children's church stuff, but people go to, and actually I think, Taylor, if you looked it up, that I think 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 of the top grossing movies are all PG.
Wow.
Very rarely as an R-rated movie make it into the top 10. That's been a while since I looked at it, but I think at one time it was 9 of the 10 or 10 of the 10 were all PG or PG-13. So if you think about it that way, it's just that we can kind of cover some subject matter that you wouldn't cover in a children's church thing. Yeah. But it would be PG, but it's not R, it's not X, it's not anything like that, but it's just a little edgier. But yeah, I have to watch it because the other thing is, if I go out and I'm doing comedy and I've got 20 people I'm hearing and they're absolutely filthy, and then I'm the one clean guy that comes up. You don't think that it doesn't have an effect, being around an atmosphere? So you have to so my thing, what I do is, because I'm like you, I'm a family man, is that I call what is my heavy week and then my light week. So my light week is I always do the Hyenas mic because they usually have a crowd there. And then my heavy week is like this week where I'm doing, like you and I were talking about, doing 2 mics tonight. I'll have mic, I did a mic Monday night, do a mic Tuesday night, we have a mic tonight. I might do a mic every night. And then I've got a show coming up. I've got a contest coming up. I've headlined 3 times in the last 5 weeks doing 50-minute sets. So, I need the practice. And then then I'll have a very light week because I'm married. And so my wife knows that week we can do stuff. And now also it gives me a chance to detox
absolutely
from that atmosphere, because you've got to get away. I mean, Jesus was with people in the world, Zacchaeus and tax collectors and lepers and Sanhedrin and Pharisees and all that. And then Jesus would go off by himself a lot. He would, part of that was detoxing from the world and people and everything else and getting back where you can introspect with God and what God wants. And so, because I'm not perfect, and so I do have to watch it with it. But if people come see me, I never cuss. I try to keep it within the line of that PG or PG-13, and I think I've been successful with that.
Yeah, and I like that you say the PG-13 or the PG in that range. I feel like that's good for me hearing that, because when I first got saved, on fire for the Lord, Bible college, podcast, missions, let's go. We're doing it all for Jesus. We're posting everything, repent, turn to the Lord, like doing all the things, and obviously there was a lot of like friction with the comedy community at that time due to COVID and, politically it's like, if you line up anywhere near Christian, you're automatically conservative. And, obviously I was starting to line up with some of those values during that time. And, the media was spinning things about multiple things, especially when it comes to the truth behind COVID. Yeah. So I felt like I kind of got very much so disconnected from the comedy community during that time. And it was really hard because I felt like for the scene, I gave everything for 3 years of like producing shows and getting people stage time, booking people, putting them up, giving them money, paying people constantly, like trying to really just give back and just do something that nobody's ever really done before in this area. And then so when that all happened, I felt very hurt by it. And I was like, man, I thought people that I've been good to would like have my back in this situation and be support. And it wasn't that way. There was a lot of much so like hate and just division that was coming my way towards that. And I was really kind of, I was bummed by it, because I like didn't want to completely walk away from the comedy scene, but I felt like I had to in order to go down the path of the detox essentially too. It's like I knew that the flesh is weak. And during that time, I understood that, man, if I keep doing comedy, I'm going to be still feeding the flesh of like trying to be famous and make it for and make checks and be around in that environment and being in that scene. And then so I had to really kind of get a new relationship with comedy, and it took it took some years, honestly, where I had to understand that, no, I can't view, let's say it's 10 to 15 people in the box of like, that's how everybody is, but that's how it feels. It feels so hyper inflated of like, man, everybody's against you, because you're a Christian and you're getting persecuted and, all that. But then once things started cooling down and people went back to work and got back out in the environment and started doing comedy again, I started to like, tiptoe back in and starting to see like, okay, where do I fit in here? Because I don't want to make it as a professional stand-up comedian. So it's like, why would I be out every night trying to make it as a professional comedian? Why would I leave my family for something that I don't feel truly called to anymore? But now being on this path of trying to be a voice for Jesus, writing books, growing the podcast, and just going where God takes me, I'm starting to see that there is still a purpose in it for me. There's still an opportunity to give people joy and be a light and minister to the guys and just be in an environment that is fun, that is life-giving, that is full of joy. If you make it that way, you can be dark, you can be, in that element of trying to chase the wrong things, but you can also be a light. And I decided to just go back and just be a light and not expect anything in return.
I've had people say they want to do full-time comedy, and my first question is, do you like to sleep in cars? And, because there's a real sacrifice. But getting back to the detox, so I had 2 or 3 people on my Facebook that comics that if I posted anything, they were there, and especially political. And I'm a political junkie. I don't do a lot of political comedy. I do a little bit, but I can do both sides, which is kind of fun, and people don't expect that. I say, this is how they used to do it. This is how like Johnny Carson used to do it. This is how they used to do it back in the day. But I had 3 people that were in the comedy scene. I did not want to block them, but I mean, I could like get home from a show, not having done a show with them at like 2 a.m., post something, and at like 2:05, they're all commenting on it's like, do you sleep at all? These aren't bots. These are like real humans. And I don't know if they had a notification that I had posted or something, but every time I'd post, and then they would say, they would all then start, piling on whatever my statement was. And then they say, well, he's not responding because he knows we're right and all that. And it became very hurtful. It's kind of like, I don't know how to balance this because you can't talk sense into these people. They just want to hate, and they just want to get out there and attack. And so with all the stuff that happened in early 2020, or end of 2020, excuse me, I decided to go off social media, and I went off social media for a year.
Wow.
Total. I had a detox from it. And so, and so I had to get on because I'd get booked. We both got booked for the ladies doing shows at the mall. So I was, so I had to check messages, but other than that, I wasn't posting or rarely would post. And I just pretty much stayed off for the year. And then a year later, when I got on, I said, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do different? Because I'm tired of the fighting. You're not going to change people's minds. I do like putting out facts. If I do something and somebody responds, I might not respond to them, but I might do another fresh post and just post information. That way I'm not fighting directly with them. I'm answering them, and then they can be in the comments, and I can just do another answer. Like, I was once asked something, such and such, here's my answer. But instead of fighting with them in a post, I'm just putting it on my page. And that's how I decided kind of to do that. But there's less fighting now. And I did block one or two of those. I did block one of those people because I didn't really know who they were, and they just seemed like they were bent. That was their calling, is to just create havoc and turmoil and chaos and all that.
It makes me want to fight people.
Exactly.
And that's the thing I don't like. Because I'm like, you would never say this to me in person. And I see these people at shows sometimes. I'm like, you never say anything like this to my face, but you want to be all like Twitter fingers on Facebook.
Yes.
So that was the thing that I had a hard time with. Because I'm like, bro, I can mollywop you, but I'm a Christian now, so I can't. I can't beat you up anymore.
You can, but have you ever seen the Apostle with Robert Duvall? And all that. There's a scene where he goes out and he beats up somebody who comes to the church, right? And people go, I've never seen a preacher do that before. It's a great scene.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it's a great movie and all that. But so you have how many kids now?
I have 4.
4. So we're in the same there. So I have 4, and my youngest is a daughter. And, the one thing that I really that's a great picture of my daughter getting married and just the awesome guy. And I will say this much, okay, she's beautiful. The guy she married, Branch, is just handsome as anything. He was a Division I scholarship baseball player. Both of them waited. They were virgins when they got married. And, it's a proud father to have a family and be able to say that about a daughter who modeled, who is the head cheerleader, the homecoming queen, and she kept her purity. I'm very proud of her.
Wow.
But that also, I'm not ignorant, that comes from a family environment. And the thing that I've mentioned to you recently is really why we're talking today, is a thing that really has really resonated to me in the last year. And it's when I say it, it's going to be organic. You kind of go, yeah, that I can see that. If you're involved in any ministry at a church, so you're doing counseling, you're doing visitations, you're doing prison ministry, you're doing food banks, you're doing benevolence ministry, you're doing counseling, marriage counseling. It seems to me, I don't know the percentage yet. I'm going to talk to some more pastors about it, but it seems to me that the majority of church ministry is because people had bad family upbringings. Mm. And that what happens is your wife, like I think you met your wife, was working in children's church.
Yep.
So my wife was the head of the preschool ministry at the church that we met at. And my wife and I have been involved in 8 different ministries. And as far as just ministry of helps, helping, serving, teaching, stacking chairs, running security, doing all kinds of things. And so I got a very broad range of, quote, working at a church but not for church, or working at a ministry but not for ministry. And the one thing that will happen is that, like, women, they'll get married, they'll start having kids, and they go, oh man, but I used to volunteer, I used to do the children's ministry, and I used to help with the youth group and the ladies ministry. And they feel bad because now they're home with their kids, because that's a full-time deal. And I always say people that only have one kid, I'm not talking about if you could only have one kid, but you choose to have one kid, they're not real parents, because if something gets busted, they know who did it. And what I want to speak into them and say, you raising your kids to where they're productive members of society and they're not a drain on ministry, church, counseling, the government, society, okay? Because you raised them right. The reason why we have these government programs, and I'm not talking about people that get temporarily down and out, but people are just perpetually on government programs. People perpetually always having to just take from the church and minister. And we're there to minister to people. We want to help people. But they're in that situation 90% of the time, or 95% of the time, is because their family life was messed up.
Absolutely.
And you look at that, and you look at the power of the family. So Barra, who used to do Christian surveys, and I'm going to hack this up a little bit. It was something like if you have a family and a child in that family gets saved, the odds of that everybody in that family coming to the Lord is like 17%. If the mom gets saved, it's like 43%. If the dad gets saved, it's like 83%.
It's super high.
It is super high. And say what you will, men need to lead, men need to protect, men need to provide, and men need to be respected. And they're the ones that are leaders. This doesn't say that women can't do things, are not able to do things, but there's also just a protocol of where God has put positioning, and God has put the man at the head of the home, and the wife is a helpmate, and you walk together. And the thing is that, for example, men get most of their self-worth out of their job and their vocation. Okay. Women, generally speaking, get most of their self-worth out of their home, how their home looks, and how their family life and how their marriage is. And there's nothing wrong with either of those. I mean, obviously our identity is in Christ, but God has given us a passion. God has given us kind of a natural. That's why, for example, my wife has all these little nook things you put around, all these little decorations in the house and all that. You go to a guy's house, guy's not going to do that. It looks nice, it's wonderful, but guys don't do that. If we do it, everything's going to be concrete, painted black. There's going to be a basketball hoop in the living room, and you laugh, but actually, when we were looking for a house one time, a dude had a basketball hoop in the living room. Had like 3 or 4 boys.
I respect it.
Yeah, I'm sure you. And so you walk together. And so the power of the family unit. So the number one, there's been studies done on this. The number one impetus to stop poverty is marriage. When you have a mom and a dad in a home, the odds are you're not going to grow up in poverty. You may be poor, you may struggle, but you're not going to be in poverty, because there could be one person take care of the family, both could be working. There's a team effort there. And that's why God designed it to where there be a mommy and a daddy, a husband and a wife. And bringing those kids up the best you can is going to help society in the future. You know, your children, think about this, Zach, is your children, you're sending them into the 22nd century.
It's wild.
Isn't it wild? I don't think you and I are going to make it to the 22nd century, but your children are going to make it to the 22nd century, and you're sending them into the next century. And so the things you're laying out now and the sacrifice you make and the expense you have and everything else is going to pay, not just for society, but it pays for you. So as you get my age and you get down the road of life and you meet people, and the thing I started seeing more and more were people, and I want to put a caveat on this. You know, when you publicly speak, used to be you just say what you needed to say and people kind of understood where you're coming. Now you have to put a caveat, because people will clip and speak and say, oh, no, he's talking about this. Is that I've met a lot of people who are married and have chosen only to have an X number amount of children, or chosen to only have one child. And I know several of the situations where and I'm not talking about people that are either not married, that never got married, couldn't have children, the woman's past the time of life where she can have children. I'm not talking about those that, like, for example, we have a friend and she had diabetes and she had a kid and almost killed her, and the doctor said, if you have another kid, you may not live. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people like you and me, healthy individuals who God has blessed, and we can just pop them out and have kids. And God told Adam and Eve, and he also told Noah, be fruitful and multiply. And that means more than you two. When you multiply. And you look at societies that are going downhill, they're the societies that the birth rate is now 2.1 or less. When I was growing up, the average family size was 3.4 children. My problem was I was the 0.4. So, you know, we had 4 in my children. I was the youngest. And so what I started seeing is people who choose to only have like one child. In several situations, the child died. Like OD'd. They have no children. They're childless now. But they made a choice when they're married in 20s and 30s to only have one child because of finances, because of hardship and everything else. And you're robbing society, you're robbing the church, you're robbing God, and you're robbing the future. And you're robbing your future. Because I remember meeting a lady, she was 72. She waited till she was 36 to have her one child. And then her one child, guess what her one child does? Wait till she's like 35, 36 to have her one child. So this woman has now finally had her first grandkid, and she's 72. And she goes, I hurt all the time. My hips hurt, everything else. I can't involve. And she was mad that her daughter waited so long to have a child. I was like, well, why did you wait? You set a pattern there. If you would have had 3, I always tell people, have a bunch of kids. because the odds are one will turn out normal and take care of you when you're older, you know. And it's
true.
And I've been very fortunate. I have great kids, but we spent the one thing I could say of all my failures in life, raising kids, my wife and I did a pretty good job at. Not perfect, but we did a good job at. There was discipline in home. I had 3 boys and a girl. If those boys were fighting, we might let them finish it out, you know, as long as there's not permanent damage. My wife might have to get a broom and put it between them or whatever. Sometimes we'd walk in and go, okay, give it in about 30 more seconds and just let them work it out. And we used a belt. You know, I know people go, oh, and everything else, but, you know, I never punched my kids in the face or burnt cigarettes on them or do anything else. When my oldest son Solomon went through a teenage rebellion, you know, I took his door.
I like it.
I took the door off. I can't remember if we took his bed, but I do remember we took his door off. Taylor, you know Solomon, right?
Of course I know Solomon.
Has he ever told you that horror story of me taking his door?
I'm sure there's been plenty of stories, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure of that. And so, and then we had a revival at church. Not a revival like you bring in a preacher and call it revival. There was a move of the Spirit of God. And the youth group went from 10 to 20 to 40 to 80 to 160 all within 5 weeks. And there was a major outpouring of God, and a lot of kids were changed. Well, Solomon was one of them, and he was radically changed. And church is a supplement. So like when we eat, okay, so when you're talking about eating healthy, okay, we don't get all the nutrients or nutrition or minerals because of our food sources or what we're eating. So you have to take what? Supplements. But you can't just eat vitamins and minerals. You have to have food. It would be best if we got it all in the food that we were eating. But
we live in America.
But we live in America, and so that's a fight. We got Bluebell ice cream, you know. You think, and so you take supplements. Like I take D3. Okay, you take supplements to areas that you may be lacking in, or vitamin C, or whatever else that you take. But you have to have a food source. Church is a supplement. It should supplement what you're doing in the home. It should not be the source of your Christianity. It should be the supplement to what's already happening naturally, organically in your home. Going through the Bible stories, reading your kids' books, you know, praying with your kids. But also your kids are watching you. And it's a big one. And it happens organically. And it's not, you get quality time from quantity time. And people think, well, we're just going to do this an hour a week with this kid. It'll change their life. It'll probably help a little bit. But when a dad and mom are there all the time, and dad's there to enforce the discipline and enforce the rules, and they're going down this path here, you have a better chance of success than somebody who's not doing that. Now, do people do everything right and they end up with a rebellious kid? Sure. You have a free will. But the odds are your kids will be productive members. Like, none of my kids have been in jail. No one has a face tattoo. They've all gone out and got their own jobs without me having to. The only thing we told them at the time is you need to get a degree. At that time, if you had a degree, you made twice as much money over your lifetime than somebody who doesn't have a degree. Now, with the cost of degrees, man, it's more like vocational school. What's your passion? You know, I mean, if you're going to be a doctor or biologist, chemist.
If you need school, like for like a medical degree, go to school.
Yeah.
But if it's something else that you don't need a school,
and a lot of times it's more experience than the schooling, or maybe you can get a certification now. Now, my degree is in mathematics, computer science. So I graduated college.
Gosh, that sounds boring. Sorry.
I graduated college in 3 terms, but it was the Reagan, Bush, Clinton terms. So I went for a year. Public school did not prepare me. Got saved, went to Bible college for a year, then went back. God spoke to me, go back to college, and then I rebelled and then stopped going, and because it was just too hard. And then got married, and so at about 5 years of just poverty with my wife, dragging her through trying businesses and poverty and everything else. It was like I got to get my degree. And so we thought, because I had a couple of years of college, that would take like 3 years. So I started college with 1 kid, taking 3 years. 3 more kids, and 6.5 years later, I got my degree.
Dang.
And mathematics, computer science. I landed a job before I finished graduating, but when I graduated, I had no college debt. I mean, I went all day Tuesday, all day Thursday at college, and I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and did that for the 6.5 years until I graduated. And I needed that degree for what I was doing. But I take a very different view on it now.
Yeah.
With my kids, with my grandkids, anything else, that there are certain things, you do need a degree in. But most stuff, I mean, if you're going to do, transgender lesbian dance studies from the Pacific North Coast degree, probably not worth $200,000.
Yeah, for sure. When you said you did most things right, was there anything that you feel like you did wrong or wished you did better when it came to raising your kid financially?
Well, for me, just the finances. We were just constant. I was trying to do business stuff. I'm very entrepreneurial, and I never saw my dad go off to a job. My dad was an alcoholic. But what would happen is my mom would make him put on a suit and leave the house. He couldn't just hang out at the house and drink all day. And so I always tell people that, I never even saw my dad pick up tools. I saw my dad pick up a saw once. I saw him pick up a hammer once. Now, he had a screwdriver all the time, but that one had vodka and orange juice. And and so I did not have that work ethic like I should have. And now by my 30s, when it came down to brass tacks, you're living in poverty and just have been horror stories of just of bad financial decisions, that I got a work ethic. But it was like in my 30s. Like when I worked at Microsoft, I was the employee of the month. I started, whenever I worked, they'd want to keep me as an employee because because now you're desperate. I got 4 kids, I got to work, got to provide.
Yeah, no.
And
you're feeling that.
It lit a fire in me, but it should have been something that should have been put in me at 18 and 17. Now, I did work. I worked at an ice cream place. I was a bookkeeper for a company, but then I didn't have to work. I could live at home and I could make a little bit of money and I could live like a king, with all the free time. And I just spent too much time. So that was the biggest regret, because the decisions and God spoke to me when I was doing missionary work and going to Bible college and said, go back to college. I know God spoke to my heart. And then like a week later, my grandfather said, hey, I'm going to send you to TCU. So I started going to TCU, and he was going to pay for it. And he wanted to see me. He knew I had potential. And I went for a year in just public school. I just didn't have study habits, and it was hard. And after a year, I just quit, didn't tell him. And the regret I had, every time I drive through TCU down University Boulevard, either a beginning of a semester or at the end of a semester during that time frame between like 84 and 89, my heart would drop within me, because God had spoke to me to go back, and God had made the arrangement for me to go back. And I basically rebelled against that. It's a soft rebellion. It's not like shaking my fist in the air. It's just like I quit. Mm-hmm. And then I remember one time in about 1988, I was driving through the campus. I was driving down University Boulevard. You could see students lined up to cross the road. And I saw a kid that I'd actually gone to class with. And I'm thinking, he's about to graduate. And I quit. That's the regrets I have, because to this day, I still am reaping the consequences. Even though I have a degree, I've got a great work that I do. Like he's mentioned, I got a job. It's a great job. Great. My boss is awesome. It's just, I love the people I work with. It's really cool, cloud-based programming. It's really cool stuff. But it was a big regret that I had, and to this day, it affects me because of those decisions. Now, God's helped me, and God's got me through it. But then having lack, raising kids, in some ways it's good, because I've been around rich people and rich people's kids, and how many of them go off the rails, either into prison, drug addicts, sex addicts, with all kinds of proclivities that the parents did not raise them, did not want them, but they just went down that road. And I don't regret that, but that was one of the biggest regrets for me, is looking back at that. But, my wife and I have been married 37 years. We've been faithful to each other. If we argue or measure, we never throw out, I'm just going to divorce you or something like that. So, and I tell people I've been married 37 years to the same person in a row.
That's big.
Yeah.
That deserves a round of applause.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you've been married, and the financial thing, I think that's big. When you were sharing that with me, it kind of spoke to me in a way. Like, I know that I've done good in as far as like up to my age. It's the future and the foreseeing that kind of trips me up sometimes. Is the path that I've been on for these last 5 years going to equal monetization in a point that's going to be able to provide for my family for the long haul? Because there's so many different paths you can take with the skill set and with the gifts that you have from God. But it's like, I've questioned before, like, am I doing the right thing by doing what he's called me to, which is this, that doesn't equal a lot of income per month, and it doesn't equal a lot of what the future looks like. It's like an uncertainty. So, you go to school, you graduate, you get a degree, you get a job, there's an outcome, right? In this, it's kind of just faith and trusting God to provide the outcome and what that is. And we don't do it for money, but when you start investing more and more time and years
and money.
Yeah, you're pouring into this. You grow, and then you're like, oh, our money didn't grow, but we grew, so we have to fund this growth, and we have to. Oh, this person's rate went up for this, and this person's rate went up for that, and you're like, okay, well, our rate didn't go up any, and you're just starting. You kind of wrestle with yourself of like, okay, where does the responsibility of a Christian man come into with the pursuit of the Christian man?
So anything you do, you don't make money. It's called a hobby.
Right.
Okay. And you have a hobby, you want to turn it into a business, you want to turn it into a vocation, because you have to go towards your passion. The worst thing that can happen, or you see happen, and Larry Burkett, so you've heard of Dave Ramsey. You've had a guy from Dave Ramsey on your show. Okay, Dave Ramsey learned his stuff from a guy by the name of Larry Burkett. The thing about Dave Ramsey is a lot more exciting than Larry Burkett. Larry Burkett, I've been through all his videos. Because I used to be involved in marriage ministry, so we do his 8-week, things about budgeting and the cash and the envelope stuff and everything else. But I remember him; it was almost surprising him talking about that when a young man married wants to try something, that at some point in his life you've got to let him do it. Because he said, I counsel those couples when they're in their 60s, and the husband now they're older, they're tired, and he wanted to do something at 35 or 38 or 40 or 28, and the wife's like, nope, you got obligations, you got to, you got to work a job, you can't do it, you don't have time for this other stuff and everything else, and something inside him dies. And it really has an effect upon the marriage, because that man's going to have now resentment against the wife because he wasn't allowed to try to do something entrepreneurial, to take a risk, to do something big, at least for him in his life. And it's important that men and women, but that men, if they so choose, and you're entrepreneurial, get to try to do the big thing. Because if you don't, you'll never know. And if you do it and you failed, you tried. And guess what failure does? Failure leads to wisdom, not just in your life, but speaking into others' lives. Like I was in the financial industry for 17 years. I was a commodity trading advisor. At one time, I was the number one trader in the world. I could never raise more than $9 million. And you got to have like $100 million. And I have friends in the business who've been successful. I go to some of the conferences still, but that was a failure. When COVID happened, and it was just like, finally, I need to. And my plan B was always I could go back and do programming. And so 5 years ago, I went back out and got a programming gig, and that was the honorable, right thing to do. Back in the day, you might work. You go in, you read these stories of these guys who at 17, because you used to graduate 17 in high school. They had freshman, junior, senior year. They didn't have a sophomore year. You only went to high school for 3 years before 1958. So you go to school or quit school. The guy would walk into the shoe factory in Muncie, Indiana, and then he basically didn't leave there as a vocation until he was 67 years old. He worked there 50 years. You hear about these guys. And so what would happen is it provided, and also we're on a gold standard so that a single income could support a family.
Absolutely.
So the wife could be home. She could be in the PTA. She could be the homeschool, not the homeschool mom, but the room mom at the school. And we had a society built around that because we had stable coinage. And what would happen is these guys would work a job. They may not even like the job, but they're involved in church. They're involved in the Little League. They're involved in the Lions Club. They have the family events. They go to the reunions. And like, my job provides for my family. And then I got all this other stuff that gives me joy.
Yeah. No, honestly, that sounds nice though.
But here's the thing. If you just went into the factory at 17 to 67 and you never tried this, you never went out and did comedy, you're not going out in public speaking, which are all risk. It's just risk on stage. Like your question, like some of my jokes, sometimes you'll just throw a joke out there on the fly.
You're just hoping it hits.
You're hoping to hit, and maybe something you've worked. I write new jokes every week, so I'm always having new material that I'm performing, or you get a heckler, and then you're dealing with that, and you're throwing stuff out. You're just constantly taking the risk, and then you kind of see where you went over the edge, or you're at a. But here's another thing that like doing comedy does: it makes you a better storyteller. Getting up on stage or preaching does that also, but doing comedy especially, and you can tell stories better than your friends can tell their own stories. You can tell your friend's story better than that friend can tell his story.
My buddy Mikey tosses it to me to tell the story sometimes.
Of his story, of something that happened to him. Because you're up on stage having to think on your feet. So I'm digressing just a little bit, but this is one of the advantages of doing something like that. So I'm in the commodity business, and I go to this big conference, and I can't afford the conference, but I can be at the hotel where the conference is. And somebody snuck me the list of who was going to be at the conference. So I'm contacting them, and then JP Morgan people like me. So they said, you can use our rooms for meetings. So I guerrilla marketed this thing. So I'm not having to pay $3,000 to go to this conference. I'm not walking into the conference, but I'm at the hotel and all that. So my first meeting's with a guy, big firm, want to get the meeting with him. And they said, yeah, you're our first meeting. So I go meet the guy in the little coffee shop. He said, yeah, follow me. And then we walk into a room, and the room is full of people. And they go, okay, everybody sit down. Rob's going to make his presentation. I thought I'm having just like this coffee, just like you and me talking right now. No, but because I did stand-up comedy, it was like immediately I had to kick in. Okay, what are the 3 things I'm going to cover with this guy that I already knew I was going to do? But now I had told a joke, got him laughing a little bit, and comedy had prepared me for that moment.
Absolutely.
Unexpectedly. I wasn't. This is the financial industry, but I was thrown in a room full of people. I didn't know I was doing that.
The gifts will make room for you.
Yes, they will.
And put you before the great.
Yes. And so, it will prepare you for that. And so so I went after a passion, and then that passion prepared me for something that I felt like I was supposed to be doing at that time was in the commodity business. And so it's important that you get an aspect to do this, but you still need to always be able to provide for your family. And that's something you sit down with your wife, say, what can we do? What sacrifices are we going to make? I can do this, because I know you don't do comedy every night. I don't do comedy every night. We'll be out tonight doing comedy. We'll be with guys that do comedy every night. They have no other life, but most of them don't have a wife, don't have kids. I tell these guys when they kind of mock me, I'll say, you guys realize I have sex more than almost all of you guys combined. From one woman, I don't have to worry about an unquote unwanted pregnancy or some kind of disease. And it gets their attention. Because statistically, I'm correct.
Yeah, and they want that deep down. They just mock it because they don't have it.
Yeah, or they just tried to do things their way. Yeah. I did things my way, and it didn't work. I felt death on the inside doing it, and that's why Christ will change us on the inside out. But getting back to the vocation thing, I think it's important for a man to have hobbies. I had a guy who he had a horrible upbringing. Back to the family stuff, horrible upbringing. So he's reading all these books on father issues. And they're good. They're good books. He goes to counseling about the father. And finally, he called me up one day, and I think his name was Todd. He wouldn't mind me saying this. I'm not going to say his last name. And I said, Todd, do you have any hobbies? Like, do you go fishing? I mean, it kind of works out. I said, dude, get with a group of people. Go fishing. Ride motorcycles. Go bowling. Start a podcast. Do stand-up comedy. Find a hobby. Guys do the model trains. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people are into, or go, find something that will get your mind off that and meet other people that you can be a light to. And guess what? There's going to be other guys that have father issues. And you could say, yeah, I struggle with that too. But God's helping me. I'm seeking him. And God can use that passion, that desire, that hobby to go out and reach other people out there that you wouldn't have normally done. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be the evangelist and stand up on your cube in the cube city at an office. And I've worked in a lot of cubes in cube cities. Something pop happens, and then you see all the prairie dogs pop up. Everybody's looking over to see what the noise was and everything else. But you can be a light where you're at. And it doesn't have to be wagging your finger in people's face. It can be living your life. Sometimes you have to draw. Like one time I was at a company. It was like Guitar Center. Well, this is a competitor to Guitar Center. They're the biggest band music retailer. So the high school bands, they buy from this company. But a guy sent me an inappropriate video through the company email. Now this has been like 20 years ago, and so I had to go to him and just say, hey, just please. I just said, please don't do that. Just, I'm married. I don't go into that. And it's not because I'm this godly person and I float on a cloud and everything. I tell people I'm a man. Romans 2 talks about men having a natural affection. And that's good to have a natural, where you're attracted to your wife. You're attracted to a female. That's a natural affection. I tell people I don't go to strip clubs just because it would displease God, not just because it displeased my wife. I'm a man. I wouldn't want to leave. I'm a dude.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste the money. I don't carry that many wands anyway. But it's just like I don't want to put myself in a situation. So you have to learn where you're going to put yourself in a situation. But in an office environment, in your hobby, your light can shine. And because God has changed, and your message is, I don't have all the answers, but I know God has the answers, and he could change you from the inside out, and he can meet your needs. And some of them, it will be a process, and other things, it will be instant. But he loves you. He's made the sacrifice for you, and he will change you from the inside out to be what he wants you to be. And that's the most powerful thing that can happen. And it's a constant process. We're in this flesh. You know, I think it was 11 times in the Bible they talk about the renewing of the body. You know, they saw this body just deteriorates, it gets old, and things die off, and, you know, you're fighting things, and, you know, skin things and everything. Hairs start growing out of places you never thought hairs would grow out of, and things like that. And yet they talked about the renewing of it. We're going to get a resurrected body. You're going to be able to walk through walls. You can eat, not eat, doesn't matter. You can fly. We're going to be like Christ, where he had a resurrected body. And that's what our future is in a resurrected body. Once we're done with a full life here, doesn't mean we exit early, but we have a full life here to where we can love our families and enjoy. You know, I always wanted to be in Congress or state rep. I'd still be a state rep, but I look at how much time it takes. And I've got 6 grandkids now, just had my 6th. And not me, I mean, I didn't birth them, but my daughter did. And it's so fulfilling to have my kids all get along, all love each other. We crack jokes. I mean, I have boys, so they're cutting up and they're saying things to each other and all that, how men do. But the grandkids, the cousins get along, and it's so fulfilling. I know it is with your family. When you're with your wife's family and y'all are all together, especially if there's not that one person that just causes havoc, and we don't have that in my family, and it's so awesome. It is so fulfilling. You know, there's a story of a man who had made a lot of money. He had donated so much money that the ICU ward was named after him at a hospital. Sort of as process of life, he's in the ICU ward.
Wow.
Okay. And it's in a circle, right? They have him in a circle. And they come to Mr. Henderson or whatever his name is. Can we get you anything? He said, yeah. And he pointed across the hall, and there was a family in there with their dad and granddad. And he said, I want that. And there's nothing more fulfilling that God gave us, and that's family. You have fellowship, you're with brothers, you and I have a long-term relationship, always will be, and but nothing's going to be like your wife and your kids. You know, and you think about what I tell my kids, tell my grandkids, your kids, that relationship with their siblings will be the longest relationship they'll have in their life. Taylor, that's your relationship with your brother. That's the longest relationship you're going to have with your life. I hope he makes a lot of money. I'm
He's working on it.
I'm drastically working on my live off my kids' retirement plan. But you know, your relationship will be with your longest relationship in life will be with your brother. Think about that, and that's what you're doing with your kids. You're setting them up in order where they get along. Because the other thing is about society is, how many people do we meet, Zach, that are like living in their cars, or they have $50,000 in college debt, never graduated college, and it's like hope, and they're like they don't, because somebody chose to have 1 kid or 2 kids, and the kids, you have a big family, there's a refuge there. Like, we have a big enough house now. We made the sacrifice. We made a sacrifice on a lot of other stuff to have a little bit bigger house. You've been to my house. Well, one time my son, who has 3 kids, the air conditioning went out in July. They had to get it fixed. It was going to take 10 days. And it's like, come on over. Just live here for 10 days. This will be awesome. I mean, you know, they'll be things. But I wanted to be able to provide that as a family.
That's beautiful.
There's a refuge there for it. And people, I feel so sorry for people that don't have it. And a lot of times it's because a generation before us made a decision, no, I'm only going to have 1 kid. I'm only going to have 2 kids. I'm not talking about people who couldn't have children or could only have one. I'm not talking about people who tried, and they could only have 1 kid or 2 kids or whatever, and they're spread out and everything else. I'm talking about people that you're able-bodied and you have the ability, God said, be fruitful and multiply. And because I'm telling you, when you get down the road and you start, so there's the story of her name's Miriam, and she had 6 other siblings. And one day, her dad, they don't know if he had a heart attack and fell off the roof, or fell off the roof and had a heart attack, but he died, falling off of a roof. Horrible tragedy. Well, guess what? They had 7 kids. And so that mom then would go, she had her own house, but she'd go live with this kid for 3 or 4 weeks, and they go live with those kids for 2 weeks and be over here with these kids for 3 weeks. And they said it was no burden. Because there were so many kids, mom could go over there, but mom wasn't being a burden. It's great to have her for like 2-3 weeks, and then mom would go over to them, and then maybe she stayed at her house for 3, and maybe a kid would come stay with her for a while. Because of big families is how God planned it. And that there would be this community, not just a community in general in society, but your family, and that's your heritage, and that's your legacy that you're leaving. I mean, it was really cool when I watched my oldest granddaughter get baptized. Her choice, not forced by the family. And I'm thinking, man, decisions I made in my 20s where maybe I just wanted to end it all, didn't want to live life, anything else. And yet I'm glad where I'm at now because I just saw my granddaughter get baptized.
Wow. That's legacy right there.
Yeah.
Legacy of the faith. And yeah, that's really been impressed on me lately of the importance of it. And I started to see it's not just, it's so big, right? In this world that we're living in, I'm blessed with the opportunity to not only have my children, but I'm also blessed that I can leave something behind them that they can go back and listen to, and they can hear my faith journey, and they can read the books that I write about Christ, and they can see where I was, and they can get to know me deeper and better than any other generation had before. You know, my father talks about when he's having his phone calls with me about those, you know, the end times for him and what he's leaving behind, and he has journals and things, and he has, you know, things that he wants to leave for me, wants me to read through, right? And that's where I'm just appreciative, because I know that my kids are going to have a plethora of interviews and solo episodes and writings and so many other things that I've created for them to be able to see, like, yo, dad, this is where dad was then. This is where he's grown. And if they want to listen to it, great. And if they don't want to listen to all of it, I understand too. You know, that's part of it. But at the same time, I felt like this podcast became so much bigger when I opened my lens to that perspective of like, yeah, the world enjoys this, my friends that listen to it, and people that tune in, and strangers, and it's grown, and thousands, and, you know, that's awesome. But the real fruit is like, will your kids listen to this one day and be impacted by it?
It's a sad story when you read about some of the great men. I think it was like D.L. Moody, and one of his kids or grandkids finally got saved later on in life. And why wasn't he saved under his dad's ministry? You know, I think it was D.L. Moody. And you'll see that so often in ministry, because ministry becomes this all-consuming thing, and it becomes all decisions are then made on ministry. And it's like, you should be the family first, because because the order is very simple. And I know we probably need to start wrapping up here. I don't know where we're at. Is that, you know, it's Zach's relationship with God, Zach's relationship with his wife, Zach's relationship with his children, your vocation, and then your church ministry, you know, your fellowship that you go to. And if you keep those things in those order, because at some point your kids need to leave and cleave. They need to get married and go off. And so that relationship, so there's this balance of raising your kids and being very involved in this. So here's another thing that marriage does. Marriage will take you back through your childhood, and if it's a healthy marriage, it will provide healing. So real quick example. I didn't grow up, all my siblings are much older than me, so no one taught me how to throw a ball, hit a ball, catch a ball. I had to teach myself, maybe a kid in the neighborhood, kind of. Not a lot younger when I was growing up. And so I got signed up for baseball, and going to practice one day, I got hit by a car, almost broke my back, almost paralyzed me, almost killed me. And so I missed half the season. And so then I come in halfway through the season. I'm the smallest guy on the team. The coach won't work with me. He just puts me as the 12th batter, in and out. I hit the ball one time. I got on base 4 times. I played only that one season. Of all sports, baseball is good in the sense if you have a small kid, because baseball isn't all about size. You know, basketball is, football definitely is. Soccer, I guess nowadays, you know, would be considered another one. But I really needed to learn how to play baseball, and I just didn't do it. Fast forward, you know, 28 years, 22 years, my sons are starting to play baseball. I made sure they could hit. I made sure they could catch the ball. I made sure they could throw. Got them into a competitive league. I ended up coaching for 12 years. Here's a guy who didn't play baseball, but I ended up helping coach with guys who were, you know, college scouts, played pro, played college. I played college ball. I coached with one, or I helped one guy. He's the only guy to ever pitch a perfect game for TCU, and he was one of my son's coaches. I learned from these guys, and eventually I coached an all-star team. And it provided healing for me, because this is the opportunity that I wanted. So guess what I concentrated on when I coached? I concentrated on the number 10, 11, and 12 batters, the ones no one works with. And yet if those guys can start hitting or at an 8% efficiency, and let's say your top of the order is at an 80% efficiency. No one wants to work with these guys because they're so bad. But I can get an 8% efficiency guy to a 16 or 20% efficiency. One of those 3 guys is getting a hit, and you're getting back to the top of the order. You're getting a couple more runs per game because you've made the worst guys on the team better. And so because of the hurt I had growing up, then now I'm married, now I have kids, Now when I get there, I'm working not just with my sons, but I'm working with the kids who are the worst on the team and spending extra time with them. And guess what? We had seasons where the second half of the season, we had the best stats and the best winning record because the worst kids got that much better.
That's cool. I like that.
And those are things. So what happens is if your dad was very hard on you, if somebody like Abe Lincoln's dad was horrible, just beat him. And so we're always trying to be balanced. And so we swing that pendulum the other way. And so Abe Lincoln swung the pendulum too far. He never disciplined his kids. And even to the point that one time during the Civil War, people would give his kids guns and cannons and knives and everything because they're in the White House. All these soldiers are in there. Well, one day Lincoln walks in with all his guys, his cabinet, to have a cabinet meeting, and one of them shot a cannon in the room where they were meeting. They were sitting up there, and Tad shot a cannon. There wasn't a ball in it. But there was the wad in it and everything. Of course, everybody hits the ground. Lincoln just roared with laughter. And he loved having boys, and he wasn't going to beat him like his dad did. And so the secret to life in raising a family is trying to get to that balance that you may not have been raised right. So you're going to go, my dad beat me, burned me with cigarettes, waking up everything. Then you got to swing the other way. I'm not going to do that to my kids. And you just got to get to balance with what's healthy for them and all that. And we could talk about kids and family and raising kids, but I know we're running short on time here. So. Yeah. But I wanted to share that, and maybe just one other thing to those viewers and those listeners is that Jesus will change you from the inside out. He's changed me. He's changed Zach. We are not perfect. We're a work in progress. But I can tell you where you're at now, however hopeless it seems, however bad it is, whatever this, or however good it is, God can change you from the inside out. He can empower you to live the life that He wants you to live because you can't live it on your own. I can't live it on my own, but accepting Christ, the book of Romans, I think it's 10 verses 9 and 10 says, if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. And if you accept Christ and you truly accept him and you seek him, he will change you from the inside out. And that's what's happened to me. And I know that's happened to Zach, and it can happen to you.
Amen. Let's leave it there, Rob. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for opening up the floor for salvation. So if that's you and you are touched by this podcast, touched by this episode, contact us. Go to ilikebirdsministry.com and let us know where you're at. We'd love to minister to you. We'd love to connect with you and just help get you plugged into the faith. And we're blessed by Rob. We have the show coming up, the comedy show at Hyenas. If you guys are in town in Fort Worth, DFW area, please come out to the show. Please support it. Tickets are only $10. You can get tickets at Hyenas Comedy Club, nightclub.com/hyenas/red/room, or you can just go to pgdatenight.com. That's actually the website you should go to, is pgdatenight.com.
And if they want to contact me, my Instagram is I'm not Bob Ross. I used to get introduced as Bob Ross all the time. So my Instagram is I'm not Bob Ross. So,
I like that.
And I don't know where you came up with this picture. It looks like I'm about to go to a doctor's exam here or something like that, right? Something I'm allergic to. So
looks like you're seeing Jesus come back.
and I'm not saved. That's what that looks like.
And guys, as I mentioned earlier before, Robb Ross was one of the ones that motivated me to write this book. He told me to just get it all out there, and then he actually gracefully heard one of my podcasts, and he offered to edit it when I was like, I can't afford editing right now. He's like, I'll give it a good look and a good read through, and he really helped it out, and have a nice little blurb about him in the back of the book that I'd love for you to read. Check it out. It's a whole new relaunch. We just put it up on Amazon. Whole new trip photos, a fresh forward from Pastor Troy Brewer, which is awesome and very special in there, as well as expert endorsements from so many names that you guys know in the Christian space, like Joseph Z, Alan DiDio, Stephanie Chung, and Lucas Bessie, and then as well as a bonus chapter at the end and a whole all new interior. So please support the book. It is available right now on Amazon. It's at the end of the day, you'll spend $20, and it really just helps us out in a big way by getting it out there and just getting into more hands. And if you want to buy it for a friend, please do that as well. If you want to buy multiple copies, that's always super helpful as well. And then we just spruced up our website on ilikebirdsministry.com. Been really spending a lot of time with it recently, just trying to get it as good as possible so we can start sending people there for everything I Like Birds, as far as speaking engagements, as far as new episodes, as far as blog posts. We're really just trying to beef it up. So please visit our website some time by going to ilikebirdsministry.com. And we got something fun for you guys today. I'm here with a comedian, so instead of doing the ad reads for our awesome sponsors in the beginning, we're gonna just drop some heat right now on you guys with some comedy, some riffing back and forth about these sponsors. So let's see how it goes. We've never done this before. It might be trash, but let's just see.
I understand. I know nothing about these sponsors, so
all right. So our first up, we got Express Employment Professionals in the DFW. They are in Johnson County and other counties such as Erath County. I've never heard of that, or Hill County. And then so they're here to help people find jobs and companies find people.
I've worked at some jobs I've really wanted to express myself, but HR told me to be quiet. So
my favorite thing about this is that I don't really, I don't push jobs on peeps. I try to do the entrepreneur vibe. So it's interesting to, promote a job service. I'm very much so like, in the past, I've been like, salary is handcuffs, and so it's funny that I have a job sponsor.
Well, yeah, and then salary can also mean you have food.
That is true, too. I've always been very much so reliant on the Lord, even if some months don't always, equal more money coming in than going out.
For 80-90% of us, for us mortals, having a job and a company like this, it's not going to hurt for you to talk to them. That's what's cool about it. It's not going to hurt. If they've got companies looking for people, if you got skill, they'll help you with your resume. They'll help you.
That's true.
Because it's to their benefit to help you find a job.
Absolutely.
So, give them a shout. If you're out looking, or if you're an employer and you're looking for people, they can save you a lot of time as far as doing a lot of the heavy lifting and stuff, because you get you put out a job post out there and you get 300 applicants. Some place like this can help you then filter those applicants out and give you maybe the 5 or 10 people most qualified. So you're not wasting their time. They're not wasting your time. And it would be a benefit to you, especially if you're in these counties. Yeah. And I'm not talking about the county jail. I'm talking about you're in these counties here.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Sonia, she's the one that owns this company, and she's been awesome. And she shows up at all the live events that are going on in the city. She's always at City on the Hill, just showing love and sponsoring that event that happens out there. And then it's cool. People will hit me up like, "Yo, any job? You know anybody hiring?" Because people think I'm more.
I got 2 this week.
More connected.
I got 2 of those
people
this week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, especially comics.
Yeah, and it's like. So then I'm like, I don't actually know a personal place, but I can connect you with Sonia at Express Employment Professionals at 817-487-4900. And it's cool to just kind of pass it off and be a bridge for somebody to find
employment.
And
here's the other thing. If you're outside of these counties, still give them a hookup. Still give them a call, because she can say, hey, I don't do that county, but here's who I do know that does it.
Exactly.
And that not only just helps you, but it also helps her, because you're networking.
Exactly.
And you never know when something may open up that's a work from home type thing that is in one of these counties, but your resume meets the criteria. So you might as well make the contact if you're out looking for a job.
I love that. So hit them up. We have the link in the description for you guys as far as their website goes. And again, it's 817-487-4900. Give Sonia a call. And then we also have Discount Appliance Warehouse. This is actually my buddy Jamie. He's an awesome dude. He makes me laugh. He's constantly going back and forth with memes and just funny things that happen. And he's great at finding things and selling them for a better price.
So do they have 8-track tape players?
They don't, unfortunately, but they do have dishwashers. They have refrigerators. They have a washer and dryer. What other appliances
Do they have
exist?
a heliport, or do they have like a UFO or anything that makes you levitate?
No, but they do have an onboarding truck ramp. They do. So if you show up to this business, you can elevate.
We can elevate
with a hand truck.
Not necessarily levitate, but you can elevate with the appliance. So, and where are they located at?
They're actually in Joshua, Texas, and it's appointment only. So that's a very key element, because he has a big house and he started running his business out of his house. So if you text him and be like, "Yo, I need a washer," he's got you. If you need a refrigerator,
do you know what brands he carries?
All of them, yeah. So it's kind of like scratch and dent.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, so it's like there's like a little mark on the bottom of it or something, so the places can't sell.
We went to a hardware outlet, and that's what I look at. There might be a scratch on the side, and a $1,400 refrigerator, $900.
Exactly.
That's the thing, is you go to a place like this, you shop around, is you're going to be able to. And here's the other thing that's kind of gone with the big box store is, what's this guy's name again?
Jamie.
Jamie, is that Jamie's going to give you personal service.
Oh man, he's the best.
And I know a Jamie, his personal service is out back and he's doing stuff that's illegal, but not this Jamie. This Jamie, he's got, and so that the day, people crave that day to where, what can I do for you? And it's not just ending about the sale, but you've got a personal relationship with somebody, that you're not just going to buy a washer or dryer or dishwasher, refrigerator. You're not going to just buy one thing. You're going to buy stuff through the years, and you can call them up and say, "What do you got? What's the price?" And you get that kind of personal service. Does he deliver?
I'm not 100% sure if he does deliver. I know that he has.
He needs to get into deliverance ministry.
Okay, here's what. That's a good one. I like that. He did deliver. He has guys that help deliver, but I think one of his delivery drivers needs to call Express Employment Professionals. Yes. So if you have $49, you can get your hands on whatever appliance you need. He does 6 months financing, and he's just a great dude.
Wait, tell me that price again.
$49 that down payment, and you 6 months financing on it.
Oh, wow.
And then you also get a discount code if you go through I Like Birds as well. So there's a whole thing that he offers. He's a family man. He's a father. He's of the faith, and you got to go see him. So go to the website. We have it put up here on the screen, as well as we always leave it in the description of this video, or just reach out to me and I can personally connect you.
Go talk to Jamie.
Yeah, he's an awesome dude. He just got back from vacation. You know what he told me? He told me he does travel insurance.
Yeah.
And
does he do kidnap insurance?
No. So I'm saying, wow. He does like he gets travel insurance. So if something goes wrong on his thing, he gets like a free Airbnb. He gets free meals. He gets free car service. Like all the things. And then he's had this happen like 3 times. So it's paid off every time.
I've done it. I've done it when we did a cruise one time for our anniversary, because we've only had a couple of vacations, because we always took kid trips.
Yeah.
But taking a real vacation, you know,
you got to get that insurance.
Yeah, if you're spending money like you and I be having to spend some money, it's like, this is a lot of money for me. The other thing people start selling is kidnap insurance. So if you're going to it's a true thing. It's not what people totally make, but if you're going down to Dominican Republic or Mexico or whatever, because usually when you get kidnapped, it's about 10 grand. And if you go, I got kidnap insurance, they got an 800 number they call, and they get you back.
That's wild.
Jamie doesn't sell that, but that's just something.
You know what's surprising? We still have people that are tuned in right now to these sponsoring. That means we're doing great on these sponsoring, because most people skip them, but we don't want people skipping.
Do we have one more?
We have one more, and it's the best one, in my opinion. Because if people actually buy it, we get money from it. This is CozyEarth.com. This is okay. So they have bamboo sheets. They have bamboo towels. They sent us products.
Now, I'm not going to be bamboozled when I go through this.
You are not. You're going to feel luxury. Okay, that's what it is. It's luxury.
Is this high thread count?
Yes. It's where like when you have a towel and you dry off and you put it up, it doesn't get crusty. It gets smoother. It gets better. So the next day you grab it, it's an even better towel than it was the day before.
So you never have to wash the towels?
Essentially, no, but I'm married, so yes, I do. And we actually have 2 sets of them. It's the Luxe towel. I always leave the link in the description for people. And if you use the promo code I Like Birds, you get 41% off, and hence for the one.
Oh, for the one. Oh, my goodness sake.
41% off. And the sheets, they actually keep you cool. So if your wife, gets a little hot in the bed, it'll make her.
You want your wife hot in the bed, right?
My wife is always hot in the bed.
See, now that's the PG date night, everybody. PG date night right there. That's what you're asking.
And then so it keeps you cold. And when you get a little too hot in the bed, and they're just very luxurious. So we have the bath sheets and we have the bed sheets from there. And they've changed our lives. We've actually made funny videos of me, because it's actually the products that we've received from them. We love to share that with people, because they've actually really enhanced our life every day, because we shower every day and we sleep every day. And I love that.
So, the only thing we had like that growing up was my dad had bamboo sticks, but he beat us with them. So, so it'd be nice to have a high thread count, like bamboo sheets, bamboo pillowcases. What are they towels?
I think if Melissa's watching this, I think she should go browse Cozy Earth right now and pull out your credit card and use promo code I Like Birds, so you can see what I'm talking about.
It's 41% off, because it's 4 for the one.
For the one, come on.
For the one, that's good.
All right, I think that's it. And we got your comedy show coming up. We talked about that, and life is good, Rob. It was awesome to have you on. I really appreciate your support over the years. You're a Patreon member as well, which is so cool. Yes, you are. He's like, man, I got to cancel that. But if you guys would like to support us on Patreon, it's so helpful. It's the way we're able to get monthly revenue to be able to fund all the things that we're doing as far as video editing, studio time, growth, graphics, you name it. It really helps us grow, and also helps us publish more things and more content. So please support us on there. Go to patreon.com/I Like Birds. And I even made it on our website, because people were are, saying that Patreon charges a fee, and I understand that. That's not fun. We made a recurring giving option on our website, ilikebirdsministry.com. We actually have one person that's doing that right now, my friend Jake Roche. Shout out you. I really appreciate you supporting us. If you want to be the second person or the third person, go to ilikebirdsministry.com and give. And what you're giving to is being able to help us do more content for Jesus and just be able to do this more so we can be the light for peeps and just lead people to God and have great conversations and just help people along the way and meet them where they're at. It's simple. It's not, we're not, sometimes we're out here feeding people, I don't let my left hand know what my right hand is doing. But
we had a piano player like that at church.
Yeah.
His left hand didn't know what his right hand was doing.
All right, this has been fun. If you guys enjoyed this one, please share it. That's the last thing I'll ask you to do is just share it, get it out there. If you can't afford to sponsor and give, you can share and you can pray for us. You can comment.
Click the like button.
You could do those things. You could follow on Spotify, or you could unfollow on Spotify if this, wasn't your favorite one. But anyway, we love having you here. It's been fun. I enjoyed having a funny man on today that we can chop it up with and get real with and talk about leaving a legacy of laughter and faith and family. Until next time. Here's the truth. Businesses and brands, they don't fully understand how powerful podcast sponsorships truly are. And here's what I mean. Every business should have a marketing goal that involves reaching people who don't know their business exists. In the world of social media, people scroll by ads without thinking twice about it, and Mark Zuckerberg gets rich because sometimes people accidentally click on them, and you, as the business owner, pays for that click. Some ads are effective and work, but I've wasted so much money on ads over the years and I saw such little return. And I learned this truth. There is power in being directly in someone's ear from a voice that they trust. And let's be honest, you're more likely to buy a book if a friend recommends it to you than you are if you see an ad for it on your For You page. The same principle applies to your business. When you partner with a podcast that is reaching thousands of people on a weekly basis, it means your business is also reaching thousands of people on a weekly basis. So if this is an idea that you've already been toying with, reach out to me and let's see how that we can partner together to get your brand heard on my growing faith-based podcast called I Like Birds that has reached over 30 million people on all platforms in the last year alone. We do it for the one, and we believe that we can help you reach the one as well. So send me the word sponsorship and we can get the ball rolling. Cheers.